some of these wraps, like this one here, it got a little out of control. I probably overstuffed it, and some of them, they're less stuffed. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, I'm Kathryn, the Aerogarden Homesteader, and today I am going to be making some more breakfast burritos. I know you have already seen me do this, but there are a few things I didn't really care for in the breakfast burrito, so I thought I would revisit it and see if I can make a few improvements. I noticed that the bacon, you know, I kind of just cooked it until it was done. I think it needs to be crispier so it has a little more texture, and I feel the same way with the potatoes as well. The potatoes, it kind of just mashed into the burrito and you couldn't really tell. So I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them a lot crispier, because, you know, they will soften a little when they're sitting there and reheating. And I am also going to add some ham, because why not? You could add steak or other add-ins if you want. You could probably put beans in too, honestly, but I'm going to put in some ham and the bacon as well and go from there. Now, I made my wraps earlier, and I accidentally put too much lard in, so I guess we'll figure out what happens if you put too much lard in your flour mixture, but we'll go from there. But I am going to, you know, as you can already see, roll them out, get those cooked up first, and then I will move on to making the filling part of it. I made a double batch of the burrito dough, basically the tortilla dough, and yeah, instead of putting in the third cup twice, I put in a half cup twice. So there is a little too much lard in here compared to what there normally is. I did notice the dough felt a little funny, but I didn't really notice the correlation. But I did get 19 dough balls, so we'll see what that gives me with filling, because I will be adding more ham. You know, it'll basically be about 12 ounces of bacon and 12 ounces of ham, and I'll be using 24 eggs. So I should get about twice as many burritos as I did that first time I did it. I did not have any baking powder, so I just made these without. And I know I can just mix up my own. I do have the cream of tartar and cornstarch and baking soda, but I just opted to skip it. Alright, well, you have seen me make tortillas before, so I will just skip this part and move on to the filling part. The filling really isn't that different either. I just will be crisping things up a little bit more. So I will give you an update on how making everything crispier, if it improved it or if it was just sort of the same old, same old. In case you're wondering how they perform without the baking powder, they have been puffing up and doing just fine. So I'm going to cook the bacon until it's more crispy than it was last time, and that way I will ensure I have a little more texture when I'm eating the burrito. And while the bacon is cooking, I am going to get the ham cut up. I am just using a piece of ham heel, and I will just get that cut up and probably diced fine, because I don't want big huge chunks, but that will be what I am doing as the bacon is cooking. Okay, well, if that bacon is not crispy enough, I don't know what is. Might have gotten a little on the extra crispy side, but I think it'll be fine. I'm going to get the bacon off, get the ham cooked up, and in the meantime I'm going to pull out the hash browns and start those browning as well, since I have plenty of fat on here to keep this greased up. Okay, so if you're following along, in total it was the 12 ounces of bacon. This is about a pound of ham. Turned out to be slightly less. I had to trim a little bit of fat off. It is also watery. It was frozen, so this was just like a ham heel that I had from some, like a ham steak type situation. It was uncut ham steak, but I had the heels that I just saved for this purpose, which turned out to be perfect. Alright, and I have probably slightly more than a pound of potato. And putting frozen potato on definitely drops the temperature on this side, so just trying to get that back up to temperature. Might need to actually put some oil on this side because it is now dry. A trick to working with frozen hash browns, or sort of the pre-cooked bagged hash browns you can buy at the store, is to try to not move them too much. Let them sit there and crisp up before moving them, because otherwise you just end up with crispy mashed potatoes. So if you're considering buying one of these griddles, I would actually suggest investing in one of the cast iron ones, because this loses heat really fast. And if you're going to cook this amount of food at once, it just makes the meal slow. We have been looking into getting one. We just haven't found one that we like. We find that some of them, they've got like the wobbly, this one's a really wobbly structure. So we want to try to avoid that with the other ones, but you know, you either get a wobbly one or you pay an arm and a leg for it. So we've been humming and hawing on whether it's worth getting it, but in the grand scheme of things, I made, what, 19 wraps. Took me almost an hour to cook them. And this, just processing all of this bacon, the potato, the ham, and the egg has taken almost an hour as well. So this is definitely a labor of love, but it's worth it. It's really good. But just something to keep in mind if you're thinking of getting something like this. Like one of those little countertop ones would probably be fine for making the wraps and then take everything outside and cook it all on the cast iron just to make it go faster. Because I do find that it's easier to roll out the wraps and cook them basically at the same time. So unless you have a prep cart outside that you can roll on, that's stable. You know, it's going to be, you're sort of in the same boat. So I think my eggs are cooked. They are slightly on the runny side, but that's okay. I do need to season them. I did not season them because I wanted to season them after the fact. Everyone keeps saying, oh, season your eggs afterwards, and like, I don't know that it really makes a difference, but we'll do it afterwards. I probably also don't need a ton of salt because I did salt the potatoes, and the bacon should be salty as well. I don't know if the ham is salty. The ham might have a little bit of salt to it, but... So I'm going to get the eggs turned down so they don't overcook. And there we go. And I think the potatoes are almost done, so just got to get the salt and pepper stirred in. And then I can start filling. I will link to the original video for this, so if you want to see how a smaller batch comes together, it did come together a lot faster. And I will also link to, I do have a sourdough wrap recipe and a regular wrap recipe, so if you want those, I'll try to remember to Put the link in the show notes for those. Okay. Let's see how this is doing. Well, they are definitely crisper than they were the first time I made them. I've actually made the wraps a couple of times now, so I have just been enjoying these a lot for breakfast. I do still eat my granola, but I don't eat it nearly as much. It's kind of one of those things where in the winter, I just want a warm breakfast. I just want something that'll warm me up. Alright, I am going to start putting stuff back in, because I can attempt to mix it back into the eggs while I am waiting for the potatoes to finish crisping up. Get some of that bacon fat. There we go. It is worth going through and breaking up all of the large egg curd, because I did find that it does make for spots where they're literally just eating egg. So if you can sort of break up like these big chunks, it makes everything come together so much nicer in the wrap. Okay. So my eggs have definitely cooked a little bit more. It does take a while to cool this off when you don't want it to be hot, and it takes no time at all to cool it off when you need it to be hot. Okay. So I'm going to start, I'm just going to turn down the potatoes and I'm just going to get them mixed in. And there we go. So I am calling everything done. I'm losing things down the back. I keep my grease pot clean, so I have no qualms taking stuff out of the grease pot and dumping it right back onto the griddle. I know that's not for everybody. You do you, but I know it's clean, and the only thing that's in there is stuff that I literally just cooked right now that happened to fall in. So if you happen to see me doing that, that's what's going on. I am actually pulling things out of the grease pot, and I am putting it back on here because, oops, I just lost a whole bunch. Because I hate wasting food, and I know it's clean. I wouldn't eat off the floor, even if I just cleaned it, but I would eat out of the grease pot. That is clean. And that's just a little tip. If you have way too much food on your griddle, keep a clean grease pot, you can just pour it back on. Okay, that is done. The eggs have definitely finished cooking. Probably more than I wanted, but that is okay. I am going to rescue some stuff from the grease pot and start wrapping. I have my little rolling station all set up. These feel pretty good. The ones in the middle are a little warmer than the one on the top, so I am going to start there. It'll give that one a chance to warm up again. And since my griddle is on wheels, I can just roll it a little closer. Okay, so as I figured out the first time, it was better to put cheese on first and then add filling, which I totally forgot, so I put filling on first, it's fine. It's also best to not overfill the wraps, because it's hard to get them nice and tight, and then they will kind of explode a little. So I think I can put a little more in there without having too many problems. There we go. Okay, so in case you don't know how, you fold the sides in first. You want to pull this part over, and then if you can just kind of tuck it in tight, it helps keep it nice and tight. There we go. I will just set them off to the side, and then when I'm finished with all of them, I will wrap them in plastic wrap and put them in the freezer. I'll freeze them on a tray so that they freeze all uniformly, and then I will go ahead and put them in a bag. And if you do end up with extra wraps left over, they freeze beautifully. You just don't want to leave them in there for too long because they're so small and like thin. They will have that freezer burn taste. It'll happen faster. You know, if you happen to leave things for too long in your freezer, like we do, don't leave wraps for too long in your freezer. I ended up with 13 wraps, so I have 6 wraps left over. Some of these wraps, like this one here, it got a little out of control. I probably overstuffed it. And some of them, they're less stuffed. So you know, there's kind of some options if you want a bigger breakfast or a smaller breakfast. But yeah, that was the breakfast burritos. I will let you know how they turned out, and I'm probably going to enjoy one for lunch, honestly. So I will let you know shortly. They were so good. The ham really does give it a little extra something. Crisping things up helps a little bit with the texture, but not as much as I thought it would. But in the end, this turned out really nice. It's just like the other one. The ham is a good addition. We have done steak in the past. That was a really good addition. I am doing another batch because I had a couple wraps left over, and I just didn't feel like putting them in the freezer without filling them up. So, and I have a surplus of eggs. So I thought that would be a great way to use them up. Anyways, I really hope you give this recipe a try with the ham. Or the steak. Steak worked really well as well. Same thing, just put in 1 pound of steak and add in extra eggs, and it works out beautifully. Let me know if you try it. Let me know if you add any other additions to it. I could see this being good with refried beans if you wanted. We put in a little bit of sort of sauce, like a salsa sauce, and it's really nice. But yeah, let me know what your modifications are below. I am curious to know. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll have some videos up at the end that you might enjoy, and the recipes linked below. And I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.